Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Jitsi Community Call. Let's get right into it. We have some updates around performance optimizations. Chair, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Emil. So yeah, we've been working on creating this new performance stat using the performance observer API, which lets us monitor for long task events recorded by the browser. So any task that takes longer than 50 milliseconds is considered a long task, and we record the number of such events registered by the browser, which which are directly related to the CPU load on the client machine. So we are trying to use it as a benchmark for client performance, and we'll be able to easily identify if any new feature or a change has an impact based on the stat going forward. So also we've been trying to identify bottlenecks, and one task that seems to be taking longer on the main thread is the way we calculate remote audio levels using the GetStats API. The processing of the stats, like to obtain these values, was taking longer and longer as the conference size keeps growing. So we've switched to another API called Get Synchronization Sources. That's available on the receiver that lets us calculate this value more efficiently. So after we've made this change, we've seen a drop in the number of long tasks recorded by at least 50%. So yeah, these are some of the things that we've been working on. Maybe we'll have some more updates in the next update.
Sounds great, Jay. Thank you very much. Brian, you wanted to give an update as well?
Yeah, some changes in Gibri. Recently added kind of the start of a webhook for the health status for Gibri. There still might be a little flux there in what we change, but some form of that will be there to say. I know some people were interested in that. And there are going to be some upcoming changes in configuration for Gibri. I've made a post on the community. Won't be breaking backwards compatibility with the old config file right now, but we will be moving to a new one, which will be more flexible, and it'll be easier to make some other parameters configurable, which a lot of people have been asking about. So that'll be coming in soon too.
This is great. Anyone else from the team wants to give an update on anything? All right, so let's start with our Q&A, and we can be done by the top of the hour. Go for it, community. Or this could be one of our top shortest calls, I guess. Going for 10 more seconds.
I've got some.
Go for it.
Issues. I'm CJ. I've posted 3 new issues in the user forum today, and I think a total of 9 in July. And my first question is, are my trouble reports useful? How can I improve them? Has anyone seen them? Is the user forum the appropriate place?
So trouble reports are always welcome, and they're always useful. You can improve them in general by making sure that they, like the holy grail of problem reporting is providing exact repo instructions wherever that is possible. Now, none of these things, no amount of improvement will ever guarantee an answer. We are hugely overwhelmed. Speaking of the development team, we're hugely overwhelmed by the number of requests that are coming in. So it is entirely impossible, not even improbable, it is entirely impossible that we would answer all questions. So what we do ask in such cases is for the community to answer as many questions as they possibly can, so that more people would be able to get their job done. So that's, I'm afraid, is as much of an advice of a piece of advice that I can provide. If you have any specific questions that you'd like to ask here, you're welcome to do so as well.
Is the users forum in the community the best place, or?
Yes, there's no better place than the discourse forums on community Jitsi.org.
So the one I posted this morning, I organized a 4-hour mathematics call on Saturday. All my events are community meetup kinds of deals, not commercial. And a user with Ubuntu and Chrome had every half hour or hour or so, the audio and video quality became choppy until Jitsi froze, and then he had to reconnect. Is that a common use case problem?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I meet with this guy once a month, so I can do iterative attempts to dig deeper. What would you advise over the next month I work with him to get, something definitive? It's not my machine, it's his. But once a month I have him on a call, I can try something.
Are you able to reproduce this anywhere else? Performance of audio and video is very much a Chrome related issue. So they might want to try other versions of Chromium, for example, or another machine. Maybe some of the work that we're doing on performance is going to impact them. And then I'm going to open a question here for the team. Does anyone from the team?
I, for one, would suggest definitely looking at memory utilization, and if there's some other recurring job that runs on the machine every half an hour or an hour that might be impacting it, like a cron job.
Does the problem go away after reloading the meeting?
For a half hour or an hour, and then it repeated 4 times. In the trouble report I posted this morning, he explains how he got it. He closed the browser sometimes. Sometimes he didn't have to close the browser. Sometimes he just reloaded the URL. But sometimes it locked up so much he had to restart the browser. He never had to restart the machine, just the browser. But with a freshly loaded browser, he'd be good for a half hour or an hour until it happened again.
So it sounds unlikely to be a network problem, though it is still possible.
So the possibilities here are some sort of a machine-related problem, that there's something going on with their installation, potentially with the build that they're running of the browser, that might, as Aaron suggested, be having a memory leak of some sort. And there's also the option of Jitsi Meet having an issue. However, the Jitsi Meet side of things would be more likely if this was something that we're seeing more often. So it would help us if you can try and check with whether you are able to reproduce this on machines other than this user's machine, or whether it appears to be happening only there. So that if we can prove that this is a generic Jitsi Meet issue, that helps tremendously. If it isn't, then we're generally not able to try. I mean, as much as we'd like to go and debug every person's situation on their personal computer, we don't have the resources to do so. So if you're able to show that this is a generic Meet issue that doesn't only impact one user, then it would bump it higher. This would make it more helpful, and more priority.
Yeah, my feeling is it's not a generic Jitsi issue, other than, as you say, general performance and so on. Like I said, I organize a bunch of these events every month, and each time I have 1 or 2 problem users, but the other 4 or 5 of us on Saturday or 9 or 10 on July 11th had no problems. So, but I always have 1 or 2 problem users, and I'm trying to build an arsenal of user support tools.
I'm not sure how much more to help other than to ask people to try different browsers and different machines. Not sure what more to offer there. If anyone else here has any ideas that they'd like to raise.
Yeah, Emil, sorry to interrupt. Yeah, regarding CJ's question regarding this choppy noise, we have experienced usually during these meetings, we make shortcuts on the user's desktop. And when the user clicks 2 times, then we get this choppy noises during the conferences.
Quite a long time ago.
Yeah,
What
so
is-
I would request.
Options. Okay.
Yeah, scroll up, you'll see it.
Is this
Start date, end date, providers is empty, department ID is filled in. That's what I scheduled.
I've muted the person. Sorry, I'm not sure if someone was trying to intentionally speak, but you were coming from so far away that it sounded like background noise. Please say something in the chat if this was intentional. Some of the changes that we've done is that we've noticed some audio issues when that were introduced by insertable streams. So we've made changes there, and now insertable streams are launched only when used, and they require a relaunch of the peer connection to actually be introduced. So that sort of audio issue should be removed. Beyond that, again, it is very hard to say, just based on choppiness, to go and come up with anything specific, because it can be. Jay, would you like to comment, or is that? Oh, sorry, that was on a different one. Okay. So I'm not sure what to tell you. Again, if anyone else here has any answers, please speak up. In general, good practices. Yeah, go ahead, Pippin.
Yeah, sorry, just got interrupted. Regarding CJ's question for choppiness, what we have observed that users always create a shortcut on their desktops to launch the conferences. And when the user clicks 2 times in the Chrome tab, you get 2 instances, and that's what happens when you
I see
get
what you're saying.
choppiness in.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that having it run twice,
practical observation.
Having it run twice on your computer is absolutely not a great idea, for sure. And you would get, obviously a poor experience when you hear the same audio twice. I don't believe this is the only explanation. There's plenty of other possible explanations for choppiness. Again, they can be performance related, they can be network related. For all of these, I'm afraid that, and we had these performance related things that were coming from insertable streams. For all of these things, the best thing that we can offer is that, it's an ongoing, it's a never-ending story. It's something that we keep working on and we keep improving. Anything with regard to performance and quality are things that we want to hear about, we want to know, especially if there are specific circumstances where this comes up more reliably. But this is unlikely to ever be a problem that we could take and say, oh yeah, we've solved this now. There's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be upper bounds to CPU resources and network and all sorts of browser build idiosyncrasies. So all we can do is just keep digging at it, which is what we're doing. Any other questions?
So summarizing, I heard an idea of looking at memory. How does a user look at the memory? I guess you could look at the memory of the browser, but is there any way to dig deeper into memory that I would be a good tool?
I mean, top for looking at the memory on the browser. Beyond that, it's going to have to do with however else they're running their machine. I don't have any other suggestions beyond that.
I would also ask that user to just try to joining from their mobile phone, from another computer, from another browser, and try and see if they can reproduce in addition to looking at the memory, just trying all these other things.
I've had a number of users that they'll report trouble in Chrome or Chromium, but Firefox works, and vice versa. They have trouble in Firefox, but Chrome or Chromium works. So my feeling is the issues most of my users are facing are browser specific, but they're common enough that I've got one user who boycotts all my events saying Jitsi is junk. And I try to convince them that 10 people had no problem. Just because 2 or 3 did doesn't, so the issue is particularly challenging to me. And
I understand. I'm sorry. And, all platforms have their issues. And all I can say is that we never stop working on these issues. There's really nothing else that we can do other than keep looking at them as we can identify them and keep fixing them. But we cannot go and debug individual users. This is just not something we have anywhere near the resources to do.
Okay, I've got some ideas on looking at memory and overall machine performance. On Windows, how do I look at memory?
You can open Task Manager and look at the processes.
Task Manager. I don't use Windows. I don't know anything about it. And try to get a little bit more memory information and a little more cross-browser, and if they have multiple machines. Good, that's more or less.
Yeah, and then if you end up in a scenario where you can kind of pin it across more specific circumstances and then something that makes it more reproducible, that is immensely helpful to us, because then we can go and that would indicate a specific issue, not just like, a performance thing, which is essentially spanning across the entire stack from the hardware through the operating system, the network, and everything. Once you can pin it down to a specific situation, like usually pretty much reliably 9 times out of 10, when I go and use this browser on this OS, this specific version, I get that problem. That is something we can take and go and start looking at specifically. Everything else is a matter of just, okay, let's observe the performance. And do we see spikes here? That's exactly what Jay had described that we're doing right now. And we keep beating those, right? So we it's not that we are ignoring them. It's just there's not much more that we can do other than what we're already doing.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm committed to Jitsi. I have no end of trouble with Zoom because I refuse to install their plugin, and their web version is worse than Jitsi.
We appreciate your support. Thank you.
And thank you.
Pippin, you have a raised hand. Is that intentional?
Yeah. I would like to just comment that we are using Jitsi daily for our video conferences, and not less than 35 participants. But the conference is always smooth going on. That's because we are following some discipline. The mics have to be muted, and we encourage the participants to use keyboard shortcuts. Not every time when they want to speak, they have to search for mouse. So we have always told them to use the keyboard shortcuts. And the conferences is very fine, and it's people are preferring Jitsi rather than Zoom. So I would I will tell CJ to just follow some discipline while doing the VC. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vipin. That is certainly helpful. I don't want it to sound though like this would solve all issues, because there are sometimes legitimate. There are browser problems. There are operating system problems. But sure, yes, absolutely. Like if you look at this conference, for example, you have community code Jitsi conferences are kind of always fall in this scenario where you have a bunch of people that are in listener mode, all their cameras are off, all their microphones are off, which ends up being a very undemanding experience on everyone's CPU, because essentially everyone is just receiving one audio and one video stream. CJ, if you can make your users be in that situation, that would certainly help, right? Because it reduces the surface where problems can occur if you're the only one speaking and showing yourself. If you're already in that situation, then back to my previous statement, we do look at these issues and we try to.
That's my problem. My use case is, with COVID, we abandoned face-to-face, and we're trying to get the prosody queues of video for dynamic interactive discussions. And so actually getting, usually we don't have big conferences. If I did a big conference, I'd want everyone's video off. But for the small 10, 12, 15 users, dynamic interactive video is so helpful. And that's where, I think that's why my use case is generating so many trouble reports, is I'm taxing everyone's CPU.
Yes, so that would definitely get better with time, because that is exactly what Jaya and Pavel and a few others are working on. So that is exactly what we're trying to do, to detect cases when a conference is being too challenging on someone's computer and to try and optimize for that. So just stay tuned and keep checking, and it will keep getting better. What was that? Sorry.
Yeah, that's me. CJ, you were describing one user with this problem. Do you know? I forgot if you mentioned the OS and the browser that person was using.
The one I specifically mentioned was Saturday with Ubuntu and Chrome. I've reported 9 issues in the forum, and this was the only time with this user I made a report. The other reports were other users with other computers.
Okay, because the symptoms you described were what I was experiencing, and this is under Windows with Firefox, specifically Firefox. And so Firefox has been an issue, even keeping completely up to date with Firefox. But Windows under Chromium works fine. So I've just learned the lesson for now, and maybe wait for a few versions of Firefox on Windows to proceed, not to use Firefox under Windows, but that wouldn't apply to your Ubuntu and Chromium user.
I have a Windows Firefox user that has problems. He refuses to use Chrome or Chromium, but I talked him into Iridium, and I'm waiting for follow-up reports to hone in on whether that addresses his issue.
Let me offer a suggestion to him via you. So I'm not a fan of Chromium. I do like Firefox, but there's this package called Ungoogled Chromium, which is a standalone. It doesn't actually install. So you download and run, and it doesn't install anything. So you basically have an executable that you run, and it doesn't install. That is Chromium. I guess all the Google stuff has been removed, and I use that for Jitsi. And it's a temporary workaround until Firefox works with Jitsi. So ungoogled Chromium would be the way to go.
And CJ, the one that you recommended, Iridium, is also based on Chromium, so hopefully that would also produce some results. But yeah, sure, anything. I think any of those are valid things for people to try, because sometimes it's just, you know, issues that are caused by some change in the build that somehow changed the interaction with the audio system, or some of this compilation settings, and then something became more CPU intensive. So I guess once you're in the quagmire of just quality issues, anything is worth trying.
I have an audio question.
Go ahead.
I was trying to figure out, I've been curious about what sort of audio processing happens in Jitsi, and I like in Zoom, I know there's an option, which is an advanced option, to disable processing or most processing. They have this buried advanced, in Zoom again, a buried advanced option where you can use what's called original audio. In other words, disable echo cancellation, intermittent noise, consistent, continuous noise, and so forth. And so if you have high fidelity audio, like not preferably not from a microphone, if you're playing back some recorded audio, that would be the way to go, instead of having it messed up with all the processing to deal with video conferencing issues. I was wondering, so that got me to wondering, okay, so in Jitsi, what sort of audio processing happens?
So there is echo cancellation and noise reduction that come as part of WebRTC, and we don't really have any control on that.
I'm sorry, Neil.
There
we
was
do
the Opus
actually.
thing. Sorry, go ahead.
We do have some control over this. We have options to disable echo cancellation, AGC.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah.
And some more. If you look at config.js, you should just open it in the repo. That's the easiest way. There's an audio processing section, and it lists a few different properties that you can set, and you can override them all with URL params. That's all I have.
It would be nice to have that on a per user basis. So like if you have somebody playing back media.
It is on a per user basis. Essentially, every user can join the conference with, you know, the config.js parameters are overridable in a URL. So you can just send different URLs to people with different parameters. And then they will start with these options on or off.
Okay, I'll look into that.
So yeah, look up so I just checked. There's the stereo one as well that you can even see on meet.jitsi/config.js. And then there's the other ones, I didn't see them in meet.jitsi. So you have to go to github.com/jitsi/jitsi-meet. And then in there you can look them up and pass them as URL parameters. Essentially, the way you do it is to the meeting URL, you add a hashtag, and then you do config dot, and then the property name equals whatever you want it to be.
I just put an example in chat for you too.
Oh, there you go. Thank you, Jacob.
And I think that's one of the ones that works. But yeah, look at like you said before, look at the config.js stuff.
Yep, sounds good. This is, check out the chat, Ked. That one looks like what you're looking for. I would also enable stereo because that also puts the Opus encoder in stealth mode, which should give you higher fidelity audio. Or at least that's how it used to be before. I'm not sure if they've changed anything.
Just a quick note. These options do not work for peer-to-peer mode. So when testing, you need at least 3 participants.
Or you need to turn off peer-to-peer mode in config.js.
Yep.
Ted, hopefully this helps you. Any other questions?
Well, one other question is, I was wondering if there's a way to get a full frame still image in our in our boxes as opposed to full frame video or a little gravatar.
How about screen sharing?
No, more just to maintain the tile aspect of things, but to use the full box for like a still.
Right. Why screen? How is that different from sharing that image from your screen?
It would be a larger profile picture, basically.
No, we don't have that. One last question.
Okay, I have one question. Cool.
Go ahead, one.
I saw Jonathan made a lot of change about VP9 support. I'm wondering when will it be available.
No deadline, but we were just chatting earlier today, and he was saying he was really close, but he's not ready to announce it to the community just yet. But I'll give you one of those very helpful answers. It's just around the corner.
Okay, I'm very looking forward. It's very exciting news. Okay.
Right.
Another thing for the unified support, unified plan. So.
Well, that's in, right? Because we're using that. Sorry, do you mean on? Well, we're using it on Firefox, right? Jay, would you like to talk a little bit about the state of unified?
Yeah, we've been using it on Firefox and Safari since May.
Oh, already. I mean, already in the latest stable, right?
Yeah, it is in the latest stable. Yeah, it's been enabled by default for Firefox and Safari.
And then how about Safari? Safari, I assume it is.
Safari 12.1.1 onwards, like the browser itself has disabled Plan B. So whatever support we have on Safari right now, it's using unified plan.
Okay, so Safari already, for Safari, we already use unified plan, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's cool. So because I found out that the support on Safari quite good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
No problem.
All right. Well, that was a smaller call, I guess. Thank you everyone for joining, and see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Oh, bye and take care.